I'm determined to help us get out of this because several reasons. The first is that the part of it that's simply a political push has to be resisted. I think it's deeply immoral to be using people of different skin colours as battering rams against each other for a political project. It's sick. I think it's sick to be using racial or sexual minorities in this manner for political ends. So that has to be stopped. Identified and stopped. But there's also this aspect of it which, because we've talked a bit about the deliberate aspect, that bit, but there is also this aspect of young people who are looking to understand the world, as we always have, and who are being offered this as an answer.
Yep.
Now, they are, I would submit, to put it no strongly, being invited to waste their lives. It's not the case that everything in life is centered around power.
It's actually quite a moving part in the book at the end, where you talk about the fact that leading an entirely political life, as you might put it, is an unrewarding thing.
Yes.
And I think you go off, basically find it in, when you talk about what do people talk about, what do they value in life, it's not positions of power as such, but it's love, and it's things like this.
Yes.
From gender theory to global awakening. Watch Douglas Murray dismantle what he calls manufactured stupidity in modern discourse. When academic gibberish gets tenure, while clarity becomes oppression, Murray argues we're not just losing language, we're losing truth itself. From corporate America's blind adoption of untested social theories to young minds trapped in perpetual outrage, he offers a provocative alternative. Reject the exhausting identity Olympics and rediscover life's real meaning.
What 99.9% of the population know and would like to say, which is that non-binary doesn't exist.
Yeah.
It's not a thing, actually.
Yeah.
It's, or let me put it another way, if it is a thing, prove it to me. Show me, tell me. Don't just order me to change the language. I mean, Sam Smith himself, who made this announcement just in time for the publication of this book, said that, he came out as gay 4 years ago. He came out as genderqueer 2 years ago. He obviously hadn't had enough attention for a bit, and so he came out as non-binary this year. I don't want to be particularly mean to him. I don't much like his music. I don't much like his voice. But so what? What I mind is that he would make a demand of the general public, including call me they, them pronouns, and say in his statement, I don't understand yet what this is, but I look forward to the day when I can talk about it. I look forward to that day too, Sam. Can't wait. I've got it in the diary. The day when you can come out and tell us all what non-binary is. In the meantime, would you mind if we didn't mutilate the language? And would you mind if we didn't pretend that chromosomes don't exist? And would you mind if women didn't have to be told that because you feel a bit feminine today, Sam, that you're a woman that day?
Yes.
Would you mind awfully?
Yeah.
And the point is, everybody knows this, outside a few social scientists and a couple of half-paid bloggers at The Guardian. Nobody actually follows this, but equally nobody says it. I could sense it in the Today programme studio when I said it. The presenters were worried. But I know they want people to say, everyone wants people to say this because everyone knows that we're being invited into a lie. And here's, if I may say so, the main thing about that. I don't just mind the lie because I don't like lies. I mind the lie because I think it's profoundly demoralizing to society. I think it's profoundly demoralizing for everybody.
The non-binary emperor has no clothes. While Sam Smith demands language changes without explaining what non-binary means, society plays along to avoid cancellation. It's not about identity, it's about power. When biological reality becomes hate speech and attention-seeking becomes bravery, we're not advancing rights, we're embracing collective delusion. This social coercion doesn't just twist language, it corrupts truth itself.
That no matter how prominent you are or how private you are as an individual, that you are meant to acquiesce in a little lie. This one's just just being asked by Sam Smith. But the point is that we know that it's demoralizing. And it's demoralizing because the little lie means you'll be asked to agree to a bigger one down the line.
Speaking of lies and evasions, you're very funny in the book at one point, actually.
Just one.
Many times.
I'd like to think. I'd like to think.
But there's one particular point where you talk about where a lot of this originated in sort of colleges in America. Are you talking 60s, 70s maybe?
Yeah.
So basically enough for come through in a couple of generations to where we are now. But you talk about the extraordinary language that is used by the followers of Michel Foucault and people, and just basically how it is entirely obscured because there is nothing really being said.
Yes, there's a type of language which is being cultivated in places like Berkeley University, where you can tell the prose is so execrable that it's clearly designed either not to say anything or to disguise the fact that what it is trying to say is a lie. I give a quote from...
I've got it right here, but it's a very long one.
Judith Butler, yes. I did the audiobook for the Madness of Crowds, and...
Actually, Douglas, would you read it for us? I've got it here. I'm sorry. It's just perfect. This is by Judith Butler, you say?
Judith Butler. She's the gender theorist at Berkeley who unbelievably highly cited. I'm not citing an obscure figure here. She's extremely widely cited. It's her book Gender Trouble, among others, that advocates this idea that gender is about performativity.
Berkeley's Judith Butler, where clarity goes to die. While plumbers must explain exactly how they'll fix your pipes, gender theorists get tenure for writing incomprehensible word salad. It's genius, really. Can't criticize what you can't understand. From 1960s campus radicals to today's gender studies departments, academic gobbledygook transformed from bad writing into weaponized nonsense. When your ideas can't survive contact with clear language, just add more syllables.
Anyhow, I say yes. Here's just one sentence from Judith Butler in full flow. I'll try to do it in one breath. I probably can't. The move from a structuralist account in which capital is understood to structure social relations in relatively homologous ways to a view of hegemony in which power relations are subject to repetition, convergence and rearticulation brought the question of temporality into the thinking of structure and marked a shift from a form of Althusserian theory which takes structural tonalities as theoretical objects to one in which the insight into the contingent possibility of structure inaugurated a renewed conception of hegemony as bound up with the contingent sites and strategies of the rearticulation of power. Now,
well done.
Now, I would submit that is a lie. Because if we agree that we're not the stupidest people in the world, we're relatively well educated and relatively well read and so on, then we should be able to find such a sentence comprehensible. And it isn't. Now, this gets to one of the roots of all of this, which is why, you see, when I started looking at the intellectual roots of the intersectional movement, I was genuinely amazed. I assumed that there was a body of scholarship, serious scholarship, relatively unreadable scholarship. I assumed that in advance. This is from the American Academy, so it goes without saying. But I assumed that it would be some form of serious scholarship, and I was amazed to discover it's either things like this, or, as in the case of Peggy McIntosh, the author of one of the foundational texts of intersectionalism, merely a few pages of assertions. Now, but here again is the thing. That's the problem for the American Academy, which has, goodness knows, a lot of problems. And insubstantial examples should just be shut down. I mean, it has nothing to add. It has added nothing for a very long time.
Butler's incomprehensible prose exemplifies academic fraud, masquerading as wisdom. When scholars can't defend ideas with clarity, they hide behind impenetrable language. While scientists must prove gravity exists, gender theorists get tenure for writing, power relations are subject to repetition, convergence.
But that's not the interesting thing. The interesting thing is, why would these claims have had such an amazingly easy run across the culture? And I go back to this thing of the post-2008 thing. To some extent, the adults in the last 10 years in particular appear to have become so demoralized that they've given up on certain things, or have sued for peace by saying, sure, we'll give you the intrinsic bias training, for instance. in major banks, energy companies, and much more. The implicit bias tests are rife, despite having already been basically disowned by 2 out of the 3 people who formed the first of the tests, who said this wasn't meant to be used like this.
Yeah.
Why would all of these major corporations be... you'd have thought that if you wanted to use the work of Judith Butler and the implicit bias test people and all these sort of things, you'd have thought you'd have liked to have seen it tried out successfully somewhere once.
Yeah, yes.
Before you decided to do it in every Western government and every major corporation and all the Fortune 500, you'd have thought you'd have tried it out once. And all of this is being tried in company after company when it is demonstrably not going to work.
Do you think there's a sort of way back from this?
Well, there has to be, doesn't there? I'm determined to help us get out of this because several reasons. The first is that the part of it that's simply a political push has to be resisted. I think it's deeply immoral to be using people of different skin colours as battering rams against each other for a political project. It's sick. I think it's sick to be using racial or sexual minorities in this manner for political ends.
Corporate America embraced unproven social theories without testing them once, implementing implicit bias training despite its creators' objections. Major institutions surrendered to ideological pressure, using minorities as political pawns while ignoring evidence. This wholesale adoption of untested social experiments by Fortune 500 companies reveals a deeper cultural demoralization.
So that has to be stopped. Identified and stopped. But there's also this aspect of it which, because we've talked a bit about the deliberate aspect, that bit, but there is also this aspect of young people who are looking to understand the world, as we always have, and who are being offered this as an answer.
Yep.
Now, they are, I would submit, to put it no strongly, being invited to waste their lives. It's not the case that everything in life is centered around power.
It's actually quite a moving part in the book at the end, where you talk about the fact that leading an entirely political life, as you might put it, is an unrewarding thing.
Yes.
And I think you go off, basically find it in, when you talk about what do people talk about, what do they value in life, it's not positions of power as such, but it's love, and it's things like this.
Yes. Charity, love, forgiveness, family, friends.
Yes.
Meaning.
Yes.
So if I'm among other things, as you allude to at the end of the book, in the ways out of this, one of my suggestions is that we do exactly the opposite of what the age is inviting us to do, and we depoliticize our lives. Do not use every aspect of your life for political ends. But there's something more in this, which is that for young people starting out, and I know because I speak to people, I travel all around the world all the time, and I speak to an increasing number of young people who turn out for things and who have so much to offer in their lives. They aren't just smart. They're smart and have access to more information than any of their forebears could have dreamt of. So, why would they be wasting their time with this crap?
Young people today have unprecedented access to knowledge, yet many are trapped in an exhausting cycle of perpetual political outrage. Life's richest meanings aren't found in power struggles, but in love, family, friendship, and personal growth. By politicizing everything, we're steering bright minds away from genuine fulfillment.
Why would the best years of their thought be devoted to working out, for instance, and we haven't yet talked about it yet, but the privilege game? Why would they be spending their lives playing this unwinnable game of working out based on their sexual orientation, skin pigmentation, sex/gender, and various other characteristics, where and when they are allowed to think, speak, and listen? Why would they be doing that? But my invitation, among other things, is if we say, let's not play this game because it's unwinnable, why don't we try to work out what we should be doing? And to say to the next generation coming through, it's not just don't play these unwinnable games, but think of all the things you could be doing instead, rather than this global, lifelong invitation to navel gaze, and then compare your navel with other people's navels and think that that's going to give you meaning or solve any of the many things we could do with solving.
Isn't it encouraging, though, to you? I mentioned at the beginning of the programme, also you mentioned it there, you've been taking part in some of these quite huge events. I mean, there was one at the O2, wasn't there, recently, with, was it Jordan Peterson?
And Sam Harris.
And Sam Harris. This seems to me to be something that's quite new, where basically you are discussing issues such as this on stage in front of huge audiences. This is surely very encouraging.
Yeah, I'm encouraged by the whole thing. I'm encouraged by the next generation. I think they could do amazing things. I'll give you an example of why. Everywhere I go in the world, I've been pretty much in a different country every week in recent years.
Why waste youth playing unwinnable privilege games, constantly calculating who can speak based on identity metrics? Instead of endless navel-gazing and oppression Olympics, imagine channeling that energy into genuine achievement and meaning. The next generation has unprecedented potential. They shouldn't spend it comparing identity credentials. From Reykjavik to Los Angeles, young people are globally connected through unprecedented access to information and ideas. Yet instead of using this revolutionary power to solve real problems, many get trapped in exhausting identity politics. This generation could transform the world, but first they must reject the dead end of intersectional ideology.
And everywhere I go, the young people I speak to are at exactly the same place in the debate.
Really?
I was in Reykjavik a few weeks ago for Icelandic translation of my last book, and took the opportunity to look around a bit.
Yeah.
And in the street in Reykjavik, a young guy comes up to me and says, "Oh, I know you from," and names various podcasts and so on. And we get talking. That young guy was at exactly the same place in Reykjavik that young, smart people are in Washington, in LA, in London, in Bratislava, in all around the world.
Yeah.
And so there's several things about this that are interesting and very, very moving. One is the access to information, which in the first stages appeared to be hellish, is providing us with an answer.
Right.
It's connecting people in a way which we were told it would, but we hadn't quite foreseen some of the consequences of that. And that means that a smart young man or woman anywhere in the world can, if they have access to online, be at the forefront of the discussions of their age.
Right.
But then the second thing comes from that, which is, in that case, think of what you could do with your life. Think of the amount of things you could solve and address anywhere. And so I want to take this wretched intersectional identity politics thing apart, because I want young people in particular to spend as little time as possible enmeshed in these games.
Roger Scruton's vindication after George Eaton's deliberate misrepresentation marked a small but significant victory against cancel culture. While his reinstatement offered hope, it also highlighted how easily reputations can be destroyed by malicious journalism. Standing up for truth matters, especially when defending those who've spent lifetimes building intellectual foundations. Some battles must be fought, regardless of cost.
There's going to be another opportunity for them to come and see you talking about this, isn't there? If they want to soon, you're going to be talking to Lionel Shriver.
That's right. Yeah.
When is that, Douglas?
That's the 28th of October.
Yeah.
It's in London.
Yeah.
Much urge anyone who's in the vicinity of the continent to come. It's Lionel Shriver and I are doing an evening together talking about these issues, among others. That event's put on by The Spectator. It follows an event I did with Roger Scruton just before the summer.
I wanted to actually, before we end, just talk a bit about Roger Scruton, actually, who you were a huge champion of him. He came on our programme just after the whole thing had happened. In relation to what you're talking about here, do you think the fact that he was reinstated was any form of, victory, or was that a sign that something might change? Because he had, he was hugely misrepresented, but he fell foul of all these various preoccupations, didn't he?
Because a young journalist called George Eaton lied and thought that we live in an era in which you're allowed to lie and you get away with it. And I hate that. And it's not just that I admire and know Roger, been friends with him for almost 20 years, but that there's no way I was going to let them get him. And yes, the moment that Eaton and the New Statesman published these lies, I decided to undo them, to expose them. I knew immediately it was a lie.
Modern media culture has deteriorated drastically. While Johann Hari's lies cost him his career a decade ago, today's journalists like George Eaton face no consequences for similar deception. Most victims lack the platform or defenders to fight back against such character assassination. Though Scruton's vindication showed that public backlash against false accusations is possible, our system remains dangerously vulnerable to orchestrated lies.
The editor of the New Statesman, Jason Cowley, should have known immediately it was a lie. By the way, we live in such a deracinated media culture that 10 years ago Johann Hari is found to be lying, and even what was left of the Independent then managed to realise he had to go. 10 years later, George Eaton, deputy editor of the New Statesman, lies about the transcripts, lies about a philosopher, lies about a major public figure, lies to MPs, lies to the cabinet, and he's still at the New Statesman. So there's something so deracinated about the media culture as well, that that's possible these days, and nobody thinks, apart from a small number of us perhaps, that it's reprehensible, utterly reprehensible that should be possible. And yes, I knew immediately that it was a lie. I showed that, I think I exposed it, and yes, and Roger Scruton ended up getting his job back. But here's the thing. That trick that Eaton did could be done on anyone. And most people do not have enough of a public profile to be able to have defenders. Most people aren't in the position of having people in the fortunate position that I am in, for instance, who can push back against that with the media platforms that we have. Most people, in fact, fear that. If there's a good thing about it, it's that, as Fraser Nelson said at the time, it was one of the first media pile-ons in which people ended up paying a price for joining in. In that the MPs who joined in trying to throw out Roger Scruton from polite society, all themselves paid a price in the end, because people didn't like it, they didn't admire them. In fact, they thought incredibly badly of them, those who joined in. So that's one thing. I mean, another is just that we also cannot live in a society this stupid. We can't. Andrew Gwynn, the Labour front-bench spokesman who attacked Roger Scruton when he was initially appointed by the government last autumn, said in one of his public statements, I mean, this is a man so dim, I'd be surprised if he'd finished any short book. And he says in a statement about Roger Scruton that somebody with Roger Scruton's views not just shouldn't have any public appointment, but has no place in the modern world. Okay, Andrew Gwynn, where are we to go in future for information about Kant and Hegel? Are we going to come to the Labour front bench? Are we going to be asking Diane Abbott and Andrew Gwynn and a few other geniuses if they can explain 19th century German thought to us? Well, this is what we're being invited to agree to. We're being invited to agree to a public square so stupid and deracinated that people who actually are thoughtful and have thought about things can be disappeared at the whim of an ignoramus, or in the case of the New Statesman, a liar. And I think that, quite frankly, a bit more civic courage is needed. A few more adults are needed. And we see this every single day. That's why I say that if I can condense what I'm trying to demonstrate in the madness of crowds, it is to say we are, as a society, becoming stupider because we're pretending to know about things we don't know about. And we're pretending not to know about things everyone knew till yesterday.
The next generation, armed with unprecedented access to information and global connectivity, holds the key to rejecting this manufactured stupidity and returning to what truly matters: love, family, friendship, and authentic achievement. So any thoughts on what Douglas Murray just discussed? Share them in the comments below. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so that you never miss any of our future debates.